Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Vajoya Chapelier, and today we're going to talk about the environment and learn how to make our homes green. In fact, I'm joined by Jay Ackley and Thelma Arceo from the Community Environmental Center. We're so glad that you're with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, let's jump right in. Hot topic, environmental issues, New York City. How do we address these things when it comes to living well in an urban environment?
I mean, there's a lot of traditional environmental concerns that we face, both in terms of air pollution. A lot of our boilers in old multifamily buildings create a lot of pollution that cause asthma and cause health problems throughout the city. We have idling trucks. One of my pet peeves is that we can't swim in the East River. It'd be great if we could sort of remediate a lot of that damage. But really, I think the most serious environmental issue we face in New York is global warming. And I think Hurricane Sandy this past year really drove that home. That we're facing severe storms, that we're facing disrupted weather patterns because of the way that we produce energy, the way that we consume energy, and there's a lot that we need to do, both as New Yorkers and society-wide, to address those threats.
Okay. So are there certain things that you think, or certain communities that you feel like suffer more than others, because there's such a wide range, you know, of topics, of environmental threats?
Sure, and I think like a lot in our society, it's low-income populations that really suffer the worst. When you have waste transfer stations located in low-income neighborhoods, where you have idling trucks in neighborhoods that are causing a lot of health problems, and where if you have a community that has more clout, has more wealth to command, that they're able to make sure that doesn't happen in their neighborhoods, but where a lot of what our city's decisions make, it winds up impacting low-income communities the worst, and that's something called environmental justice that's taken place, or that's risen to the forefront of a lot of people's thought over the last few years. And I think more than anything, going back to Hurricane Sandy, you saw in the days after, the immediate concern, the first priority of everyone was get Wall Street back open, make sure that the financial district is okay. And you're looking at 2 or 3 months later, and there are NYCHA houses in the Rockaways that still don't have power. People still haven't been to visit to make sure people are okay. And I think it's those communities that are really impacted by environmental threats.
So have you seen any positive changes so far that people have made to really help these affected areas?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most impressive was, I think, the response. I mean, the city, state, fantastic work getting the financial district and everything back open after Hurricane Sandy. But Occupy Sandy really did a fantastic job, and I don't think they've gotten the credit that they deserve in sort of formal channels of recognition. But then also just sort of on an environmental basis, greenhouse gases, I think that Mayor Bloomberg has done a lot over his tenure to really get that a part of city activities. He started the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability. He started Plan YC, and really a lot of important sort of basic measures that need to be taken across cities across the world to make sure that climate change doesn't make our way of life unsustainable. And I think he's really taken it seriously and has done a lot to promote that.
So there's a lot happening behind the scenes, even if we don't know it, but it's always good to know we're being taken care of. So let's get down to the individual level. How can a person, even if you didn't go through Hurricane Sandy, but there's so many different ways that we are concerned about our environment, how can a person maybe make their own home or apartment more environmentally conscious?
Well, there's one way is to do an energy audit, basically. That allows a homeowner or even a building owner to know exactly what type of measures needs to be addressed in the building. We usually recommend a comprehensive approach on the energy audit in order for them to identify what measures really had to be prioritized in order for them to claim efficiency and conservation.
So the environment is a very big, huge, vague topic, and it's very important. But what are some of the specifics that we need to be looking out for in our homes and apartments,
Sure.
Personally and even generally?
Well, and I think that I mean, you say it's a big, vague topic. I think that's true. A lot of people think environment, and they think preserving nature. They think going out streams and mountains.
Exactly.
And I think people really have a tendency to draw a line between city and nature, and we really don't have that luxury. We have to recognize that our city and our urban environment is part of the earth, and that we make an impact on the earth with our decisions in cities. In terms of specific to our homes, we really have to look at that. I mean, New York City has such a fantastic public transportation infrastructure. We have a very low greenhouse gas footprint compared to the rest of America. But it is our buildings where most of our energy is consumed in. I think it's 70% of our greenhouse gases come from buildings. So we really need to look at making sure our boilers are efficient, that we're not overheating our buildings and everybody's opening up their windows in the winter because it's too hot. There's a lot of inefficiencies, and building owners don't really recognize the cost savings that are on the table if they can take a comprehensive energy audit and turn it into cost savings and environmental benefits.
There's several measures that can be done in order for them to save energy and also to prolong the life of the equipment. So like what Jay is saying on the boiler side, right now there's, with the local law, there's a need to do conversions from the dirty oils that we have into a more cleaner, biodiesel gas system, or even the number 2 oil. So that approach actually helps the environment to lower climate change.
So these are good tips. This is good information we're getting. You mentioned something earlier. I'd like to go back to that about air quality. So can you mention, what is it that we need to know about air quality and what measures are being taken to improve it?
Sure. I mean, that's the local law that Thelma was just referencing. The Environmental Defense Fund a couple years ago published a report, The Bottom of the Barrel, talking about the dirtiest oils heating our buildings, and it's number 4 and number 6 heating oil. And it's just outdated, inefficient technology from mid-century. And it's basically tar that you're feeding into these boilers. And the way it burns, all the black smoke you see coming out of buildings across the city, those are being made illegal. You can no longer get a permit to operate a number 6 heating oil boiler. And this is because of the good work of the Urban Green and Bloomberg and the Environmental Defense Fund. And I think by 2030 you can no longer burn number 4 oil, but we're getting away from these dirtiest oils toward number 2 oil.
And a cleaner,
and natural gas, where you're not, basically they're taking tar oil out of the ground, doing very little to it, and then selling it to buildings to burn, and it's very cheap, so it's very hard to get people to move away from that, but now they're making sure it happens because it's causing terrible health problems, and it has. If you look at asthma rates in cities, especially New York, compared to places that don't burn these oils, it's not worth it for us economically from a health basis, as well as just doing the right thing.
So the air quality really has been documented to affect, people's healths, and you don't think about it when you put the heat on, or when you turn the radiator on. You don't really think much past, where's this heat coming from? So it's good to know this is being addressed.
Well, the other component with indoor air quality is actually ventilation, which we're trying to address right now. So part of measures that we're doing is actually cleaning ducts and vents and registers to make sure. Most of the time, that's a measure not touched at all. So you have old buildings wherein, if you look at their exhaust vents, it's so dirty, ducts are clogged, and that's another way where air pollution will come in, and you'll have also the dirtiest air quality within an apartment. And that's one of the measures that can be done, actually, to make the indoor air quality more sustainable and more efficient for the building itself.
I think I had heard that at the beginning of the fall, whenever you change your times, go ahead, when we turn our clocks back or forward, then to check your filters, change the batteries and the smoke detector, all of that. Is that enough?
Well, these are actually the duct registers in your bathroom and your kitchen, which most of the time is being neglected. So when they're calling about air filters, it's all about their ACs, or their furnaces. So this time, we have to look at the interior of the building where you have ductwork, and that's one of the things that has to be cleaned on a regular basis.
So we need to pay attention to our filters and change them often.
Register, right.
Solar energy has really been in the news a lot lately, and it's gaining more prominence. What do you know about solar energy that you could share with our viewers today?
Sure. No, it's definitely one of the more promising ways to get away from our current fossil fuel-based economy and energy-producing infrastructure. One of the more promising things about it, I think, when we saw during Hurricane Sandy, when you have power outages, you have the central power plants, and that plant goes down, and then nobody has any power. if you're looking at putting solar energy throughout the city, it's so much more distributed and so much more resilient that you have that ability for people to retain their power despite infrastructure failure. It's really, I mean, we don't see it on top of a lot of buildings. Solar Community Environmental Center has been working on solar thermal water heating. We've deployed that in low-income buildings throughout the city to make sure if there's a power outage or infrastructure damage that people have hot water, which was something that people didn't have after Hurricane Sandy.
You really only miss it so much when you don't have it.
Exactly.
You don't always appreciate it, but then when it's not there, you know, we were without power and without water, so I understand.
And that's really something that solar can help with. But there are a lot of things that need to be done. There are a lot of regulations about what you can put on top of buildings that make things a lot more complicated. I mean, the number of expediters you have to have involved in a solar project just to be able to file codes. The technology has a way to come to make it affordable, but there's also a lot of really basic things that the city and state and different locations across the country need to do to make it feasible and to make sure that we can hook these up to the grid and people can make money if they're producing energy and they can sell it back. It's a very promising technology, but there needs to be more done.
It does. It sounds very encouraging and very promising. You know, we're going to come back and have another segment with Jay and Thelma, but before we go in this last couple of moments, how did you get started, you know, helping to help the environment?
Well, we have a federal-funded program called Weather Station Assistance Program. And this program is actually administered by HCR and Housing, Community and Development. And we're one of the sub-grantees that provide the implementation for this program. It's actually a program for low-income housing, both single-family and multifamily, wherein grant money is provided to building owners and small homes owners to supplement whatever implementation is needed to do energy efficiency and conservation.
Well, energy efficiency, I mean, that's going to save homeowners and even, you know, renters so much money. How can people make sure that they're getting a good, solid energy assessment in their homes?
Well, one of the things is to get a qualified energy auditor to make sure that they actually understand what the different measures that needs to be done in the building. There are actually 3 types of energy audits. One is a walkthrough, which is a simple audit where the auditor walks through the building and assess visually what's needed. Then you have what we call an ASHRAE 2 model, wherein it's more an instrumented diagnostic approach, wherein there's measurements and there's verification of the measurements. And ASHRAE 3 is actually one that's a comprehensive instrumented diagnostic with a modeling component. So it all depends on what type of audit you want. It goes from a very simple one to a very complicated where all cost efficiency and cost estimations are done.
All right, super. Well, we're going to come back and hear more from Jay and Thelma right after this. Thank you for watching Joy in Our Town. Please stay tuned.
Welcome to Cook It Safe Challenge, where teams compete to make the right decisions about safe food preparations. Our challenge in this round, read and follow packaged cooking instructions and use a food thermometer. Let's see how our teams are doing so far. Team 1.
We just got 100 points.
We separated our raw food from our cooked food.
Team 2.
We got a 100-point green card for proper hand washing before our meal prep.
We've reached a critical safety point in the challenge. Okay, Team 1, let's check this out. Uh-oh, not a safe internal temperature for those hamburgers. That puts everyone at high risk for foodborne illness. You get a red card, undercooked. Always read and follow the packaged cooking instructions and use a food thermometer. Let's see how our winning team cooked it safe and avoided problems.
Well, I just kept focused on the 4 food safety steps: clean, separate, cook, and chill.
And we followed the packaged cooking instructions and took the temperature.
Can you cook it safe?
Because my parents told me I have to be responsible.
Because my first coach told me, you can do this.
Because my teacher helped me see the choices.
Because my coach treated me like everybody else.
Because my boss showed me how to do a good job.
Because a mentor believed in my potential.
Is why I am where I am today.
I'm swimming faster than I ever dreamed I could.
I discovered that I could work as an artist.
I led my high school team to 2 championships.
I am a valuable employee.
I have a career that I am passionate about.
I will be whatever I want to be.
What can you do?
What can you do?
Like all young people, youth with disabilities should grow up expecting to work and succeed. For more information, visit whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Joy in Our Town. I'm Vijoya Chapelier, and I'm with Jay Ackley and Thelma Arceo from the Community Environmental Center. We're still talking about the environment, but now I'd like to branch out a little bit and talk about how to rebuild more in a general sense to keep our environment healthy. As you mentioned in the first part of our show, people are still rebuilding in the New York City area from Hurricane Sandy. What should they be looking out for, ways to rebuild that that's actually appropriate? And that will be environmentally conscious?
Sure. I mean, that's one of the sort of our main projects right now is getting Hurricane Sandy recovery to incorporate tenets of sustainability. It was really admirable when Bloomberg and Cuomo and a range of regional leaders came out and said, this was a hurricane that was made much worse by climate change. This is not business as usual. This is demonstrating that our world, our global climate is changing, and that there's a lot that we need to do to prepare for global warming, to recognize that this is happening, and to mitigate the worst effects that we still can if we take a turn towards sustainability. And to that end, the number one thing we should do is when we're rebuilding from this hurricane, we should make sure that we're rebuilding efficiently, that we're not wasting energy in our old buildings. And we have such a valuable opportunity. There's so many houses, so many large apartment buildings that are being gutted and rebuilt from scratch, and we need to make sure that we're done sustainably, and that it's not about just cheapest upfront costs, but it's about making sure we have appropriately sized boilers, that we have insulation that is more high-performance cellulose insulation as opposed to conventional fiberglass insulation. Really works a lot better, is a lot more environmentally sustainable, and really just sort of making that connection that we're rebuilding from something that was caused by climate change. How can we make climate change not as much of a threat, and not just resiliency, not just preparing for future storms, but really lessening the chance of future storms.
Yeah, so we have a chance really now, as you just said, not just to, okay, quick, let's get everything back together, but let's do it in a smart way. Because there are actually, I think I heard there are actually wrong ways to rebuild as opposed to the correct ways to rebuild. Can we address some of those topics?
Well, since we're doing a lot of GAT rehab, it's important to use green materials, friendly materials, environmentally friendly materials. And one of those that we really would like to emphasize is cellulose, which is a green product. So insulation is very important, making sure that the moisture content of the building is much lower and can sustain the healthy environment of a building. Using, more efficient boilers, going through condensing boilers, using energy management system, which is a high-end control mechanism that actually allows you to control the temperature inside your house or your building instead of calling heat coming from the outside temperature. There's other various, lighting fixtures that are available, from LED to compact fluorescent lights, that should be used right now because it's there in the market. So there are several opportunities to really make any GAT rehab or any modernization high up in terms of energy efficiency and affordability, basically.
And I do want to step in there. In terms of, and this isn't necessarily environment, global warming, but one of the most dangerous things people can do when they're rebuilding is to not pay attention to mold and mildew concerns. We're very concerned that a lot of people in small homes in the Rockaways and throughout the region are just going to be putting up new walls without recognizing that they're causing serious health issues by allowing mold and mildew to take hold in their homes. And we want to make sure the mayor's office and LISC is an organization, and they have a mold remediation program, and we really just want to make sure everybody is aware of that, and when they're rebuilding that they're doing it both environmentally sustainably but also with awareness of their health.
Well, because it sounds like that rebuilding properly, you know, not only it's going to be better for you, but if you don't rebuild properly, you can really have a lot more problems down the line. That could be very, very dangerous health-wise and environmentally. Would you agree?
Right. Well, that's the reason why approaching this rehab in a more sustainable and friendly way is the right way to do, because you're not only looking at the current condition, you know, physical condition of the house, but you're looking at long-term savings, you know, both, you know, preventive maintenance and operation savings. If you maintain, you know, the building more efficiently than what you had before. So we see that there's a long-term approach to making, you know, the buildings more sustainable.
Well, an inevitable byproduct of construction is going to be waste. What do people need to know about the waste that happens, you know, when they're rebuilding and how to handle it?
We have...
Well, yeah, Community Environmental Center has one of our affiliates, Build It Green, New York City, and I think they've been on this program before, but they specialize in taking construction waste and taking what's salvageable, and instead of just throwing it all in a landfill, actually reselling it at very discounted rates to local communities and to artists. And a lot of what they do is surplus building material, where they build a house and they have whatever's left over, but also deconstructing, and instead of demolishing a building is they'll take a run through and they'll take all the cabinets and all the doors that can be reused and are valuable building materials and getting them back out into the community. And I think we have a problem as a society with a lot of short-term thinking. What's the quickest way to get a new house up is just demolish and throw the old house in the landfill. And that's really not a good way to structure our economy, or it's just the short-term thinking that isn't sustainable. And Build It Green New York City is one of a number of organizations that really focuses on construction material deconstruction and reuse and repurposing and salvaging rather than just landfilling it all.
So reuse, recycle in every part of our lives, right?
And reduce.
That's right.
We
Reduce.
focus on the energy efficiency reducing, and they focus on the reusing.
But it really does all work together, and it is financially proven to be beneficial for all of us individually and, you know, citywide and nationwide.
Absolutely.
So are there more environmental ways to save energy and save money and save the environment? We've talked about a lot today, but I know that you have this treasure trove of information at your fingertips. What else could you share with our viewers today?
Well, we have different programs that can help them in financing energy efficiency for affordable buildings. Like what I said, we have the Weatherization Assistance Program. We also have another DOE-funded program that's called Weatherization Innovation Pilot Program, which also addresses low-income housing in order to add grant money into the financing. Most of the utilities have different programs that can give you rebates. So aside from you taking charge of whatever rehab or development you need, there are programs there that could really assist in the financing piece.
And I think one of the most important things is, so we can, important, like get your CFLs, get LED lighting if you can afford it, do Energy Star appliances, sort of basic, just make sure you're not just paying as little as possible, but you're investing in long-term cost savings and energy efficiency. But we don't really like to say, here's a list of things that you should do that are energy efficient, because every building is so different. And it comes down to the audit, so importantly, of being able to assess all of the energy consumption mechanisms in a house and say, where is the inefficiency happening? Is this a building that would benefit from windows? Is this a building that would benefit from a new boiler or just a tuned-up boiler?
Or roof insulation, or even lighting, demand-side management, different lighting arrangement, bi-level lighting. So there's a big component, and what the audit will do is prioritize those measures wherein you get the most out of the cost savings, benefit in terms of an approach in implementation.
And it just drives home so much how different every building is. There's not a template that you can say, this is how to make a building energy efficient. You have to go in and take it on a case-by-case basis.
Well, so it sounds like, especially for New Yorkers, even if you're renting, it's a good idea to get an audit. Can we just go back to that? Is there a ballpark figure that people should look for of how much they should expect to pay for an energy assessment?
Well, depending on the size of the apartment or, of a single family or a building, it could range from $500 to thousands of dollars. And there are programs that would provide you with free audits, actually. So some utilities, as well as NYSERDA programs for home performance, can assist you in doing that part of the fee structure in terms of getting an audit. So it varies depending on what type you're asking for and how big the facility is.
But for most small homes, for most single-family homes in New York, there's NYSERDA funding available. Unless you make very, very much money, it's free to very low cost.
Okay. So what's the first step if someone's watching today and they said, you know what, I really would like to save my environment, save some money in my own home? What's the first step for them?
I'd say give us a call, and then we can, depending on your situation, who has, whether you're in a small home or a duplex or a larger building, we can put you in touch with the right folks. Generally, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, they have most of the programs, and they have a lot of financial support. And so we'll work with building owners to figure out what programs make the most sense, how they can achieve the biggest savings and have the least upfront costs.
They could also check our website at www.cecenter.org, and they could get all the information they would need.
Wonderful. You know, in these last few moments here, we do want to get more of an interest generated for people to say, you know what, I can do something to help save my environment. What would you like to say to those people?
I mean, I think a big part of it is taking responsibility for your own home. And I think to a large extent we have a problem with assuming that our politicians and our government is going to be able to take care of this for us. And it's really not happening, and we really need to recognize that we can empower ourselves to make energy responsible decisions, both in our homes, in our transportation decisions, and that we need to take personal responsibility for it. And it's not going to happen at the governmental level until we show that we're serious about it as a population. So whether it's a matter of your building and making that more energy efficient, or if you want to talk about the environment more generally, 350.org is a fantastic organization dedicated toward fighting climate change. But really, it's a matter of spend some time online, figure out what you care about, and if you have the passion for it, do it, and just, we have a lot of responsibility to pick up the slack for it, because it's not happening, and it hasn't been happening for as long as we've known about global warming. And it's very distressing, and I think Hurricane Sandy is helping with some level of urgency, but it's really not enough. And I think a big part of the disconnect is personal responsibility versus thinking, oh, we can count on the government to take care of this for us.
So one person really can make a measurable difference, even though if it doesn't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I mean, and that's why I like this industry and this company so much, is you're saying, well, this is responsible, environmental, hooray, but we're really talking about cost-effective decisions, and that there's so much that we can do that is just in our own personal self-interest that will actually make a big difference for our global climate. And that's a big part of CEC's mission, is educating people about how these incentives line up, and that there are good things that can be done at an individual level to make a very big difference.
Well, I thank you so much for joining us today. We've learned a lot, so whether we as individuals can change our light bulbs or get an energy efficient audit or assessment, there are ways that we really truly can make our world a better, cleaner, healthier place. Thank you so much for watching Joy on Our Town. Thank you so much, Jay and Thelma.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and is made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town coming to your home every week. Write to Joy in Our Town, Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.